Good morning. I'm Betsy Caprio from the Center for Sacred Psychology in Los Angeles. And we're a center that has psychotherapy for our clients and also spiritual direction, mostly from a Jungian psychological viewpoint, which is meshed with whatever a person's spirituality might be. In the old days, that would be their traditional religious practices. But today, that can be, spirituality can be anything. One of my favorite stories is of the man who called us up early on when we first came here in 1984. And he wanted to know if we could help him learn to dance the cosmic boogie. And since I had no idea what that was, I said, well, we can try. And I think he went somewhere else. And I'm here to talk with you today about using astrology as an adjunct for either psychotherapy or spiritual direction or perhaps other activities. And we have found that astrology, which means a lot of things to a lot of people, is such a broad field and can be so helpful to people who come to see us. We're not astrologers. My husband and I who work here and others who work here consider ourselves astro friends with a hyphen. So that means helping people learn how to think about astrological symbols and activities in their lives and use them for their own growth and their own excitement about the kind of life they're living. So that's what we do, and that's who I am. And I thought I would talk with you about questions and answers that people have come in with and asked for. They have the questions, and we try to have as many of the answers as we can. But I have a whole bunch of them here, and would like to share them with you. Okay, here's my first one. I don't have names for the questioners because that seemed a little intrusive and lacking in confidentiality. So the first one is, by astrology, and that's in quotes, you don't mean newspaper columns and fortune tellers, do you? Or do you? Is there more? And so, of course, the answer to that is that this is what we do is nothing like what you find in your daily newspaper for your sun sign. But we still have fun reading those sometimes. And in fact, if you will look at one of those columns in any paper, they almost always have a disclaimer at the bottom saying, these thoughts are for entertainment only, because they don't want the paper to be sued for guiding you in the wrong way. So, we're talking about the ancient art of astrology that's been around since before the old ancient Egyptians of the pyramid days, and comes to us primarily in the West from the Babylonian and Assyrian cultures that are about 400 to 2000 BCE, and are the foundation of Western astrology. Also, as you probably know, cultures throughout the rest of the world have their astrological systems. In India, it's been around since 5000 BCE, a long, long time. In China and Japan, there is Chinese, Japanese astrology. In the South Pacific Islands, they have their own brand that's been with them all this time. The Mayan culture of Central America also had a flourishing astrological milieu, and remnants of that are found in the remains of that culture today, with signs of the zodiac that are different from those from the Western cultures. But we're talking about, I guess you'd call it modern Western astrology. And that is very, very far removed from newspaper column astrology. So let me go on and see what other questions we have here. Okay, probably many people's first thought, hasn't science disproved the validity of astrology? And my answer to that would be that astrology can't be proven except by those who find it helpful in different ways and use it, and they're witness to its power, not power, let me say its importance in their lives is the proof, rather than a scientific cause and effect proof. You know, A equals B, or if when the sun is in Leo, X always happens, which isn't true. So we're talking about a different kind of proof. And those of you who are familiar with what's called the new science, which started thereabouts with Einstein and quantum physicists of the early 20th century, know that a whole new science has emerged that presents a new paradigm for judging everything. A big factor in it is Jung's principle of synchronicity, that things that happen in one sphere of our awareness have parallels in another sphere of that. A homely example of synchronicity would be that I pick up the newspaper today, let's say, and see an article on, I'm trying to think of one that's very timely. Well, the very timely one would be taking down the Confederate flag from state houses and public buildings throughout the South. And at the same time, I might have a dream that was about dismantling a flag from somewhere that's not related to the news item, but that seems to be important in terms of how I can interpret it in my own life. And those two things would go together. So that's an example of synchronicity. Synchronicity is a tongue twister. Let me see what else I can tell you about the new science. And as a non-scientist, that's still very abstract for me, but I do know that there's a place for a new astrology, which is really a revival of ancient astrology within this new paradigm, which is very interesting. Let me hold up a couple of books that describe this better than I can. Here we have Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas, T-A-R-N-A-S. Now, he is really a philosopher as well as an historian. And he talks about the changes in Western cultures, meaning Europe and the Americas, or at least North America. Changes in that culture from BCE times right up to today, and he's tracking them. He's a historian of world culture, especially Western culture. And he has an exciting chapter in here about how astrology not only helps explain what's going on in the new science and the new paradigm, but how it can be a valuable tool. And this is completely apart, we understand, from laboratory science, where you put things in a test tube and take notes to see how they will come out. That's a different way of viewing things. Very valuable, but not where astrology fits in.